Hey everybody, I hope you're all well. I hope your game is good. Today I want to talk about your shadows. And when you identify a shadow, you acknowledge a shadow and you accept this about yourself. You accept something about yourself and you lean into it. You actually set yourself free from it. And I'm going to explain how, okay? So I'm going to try and really keep this short, but it gets away from me. So in March, my brother and I had our fight. I moved out of their house. And in that moment, I made that choice. All right, I'm leaving. I'm getting out. I don't want to hear this anymore. I don't want to hear that your child is unhappy, whatever. Whatever it was. I understand the point of view, but, it's neither here nor there. I'm not blaming anybody and I don't have any resentment towards it. I remember thinking to myself very distinctly, I have no use for him anymore. Him being my brother. I was like, I have no use for him as a person, right? And that is a very important statement that I'm making. Okay, so in that moment, that day, that night, I booked the hotel room that I was going to be staying in for the next 8 days. That was going to carry me over from leaving their house to my next house sitting gig. And I was able to leapfrog from that point on. And I've been doing that for the last 6 months. Okay, it's been keeping me afloat. And I rented my U-Haul. The next morning, I got up early. I had this whole thing. I'm not telling anybody I'm moving out. I'm just going to go get the van, start packing my stuff up and get out. I packed up. I moved a mini fridge. I moved all kinds of things. There was more stuff of mine in that house than I realized. And drove it down to my storage unit, packed it all up in my storage unit, got back up to the place, turned the van in, went back up to the house, started packing up my truck and trying to get as much out as I could, right? In a certain amount of time frame. I wanted to get out before he got home. But so I managed to get everything packed up and I was like, I'm out. Like, I'm done. Like, I'm never looking back here, right? And that was it. And then I went and stayed at the hotel and I never looked back at that. And that was just it. But I remember distinctly saying to myself, I have no use for him anymore. And I've known this man for 52 years of my life and I can predict his behavior. And I knew how he was going to I knew when we were having that fight exactly how it was going to go. And if you know somebody that long in your game and you can't predict their behavior, are you even paying attention? And I'm pretty good at pattern recognition. And I knew this was just how it was going to go down. And when you really think about how beautifully the Matrix is designed, it created this. My source self and the Matrix made that happen for me. I made it happen because I didn't want to live there. I didn't want to live there anymore. I was done with it and it happened. And it was that catalyst I needed. And in that moment, I made that choice, but I didn't know how much more about myself I was going to learn in these last 6 months. And it's just really kind of culminated in the last few days. And so now I'm talking about all that because over the last few days, I've made this decision. I needed a different storage unit because the one I have currently is getting expensive. It's almost $400. It's $375. It's going to be $400 soon. So I said, I want to start cutting expenses. I've been spending freely over the last 6 months. Now it's time to get serious. So I want to start cutting expenses. And I found a cheaper unit. So I was like, I got to move it and I want to do it in the next 2 weeks before the end of the month. So the first day that I got the second unit, I went and rented the van. I started moving stuff out and moved some stuff into the new unit. And then 2 days later, on my days off, actually, I rented a van, got my mattress, got my box spring and all that stuff. And here's another thing. Anytime I need help, the Matrix presents the help for me. Literally, the Matrix has your back all the time. And if you're not experiencing it now, you really are not going to know that until you need that help. Literally every time I needed help with something like a flat tire or moving something, the help has been there. And in this case, like the first day or whatever that I had been moving stuff, there were movers there and they're friendly and everything like that. You say hi, blah, 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 all that. Right. So when I was bringing out my mattress and box spring down from the storage unit, I was bringing it out onto the loading dock. There was one of those movers there that recognized me, and he's like, "Let me help you." So together, he and I put my mattress and box spring and my headboard into the van, and that was the only help I needed. I was so able to move. I mean, I had bruises all over my body, but I was able to do it. And some of the stuff was heavy, and I had Shira power in some cases, because one of my pieces of furniture has like a granite slab on it. Okay. So it was heavy. And I realized from the move in March, like, I don't need to ask anybody. I don't need to impose on my other brother to help me move, who has like all kinds of physical ailments. You know, he's hobble leg. He's just got a whole bunch of problems. And I remember when he moved, me and him moved, he was like dealing with a hernia. You know what I'm saying? So like, well, you know, he's an NPC, but nevertheless, I digress. I was like, I don't need to ask anybody to help me. I don't need to impose myself to ask them, to beg them to house me anymore. Okay. I don't need to do that. That I slammed the door shut on that, right? And I said, I don't need to impose this guy anymore, because I can do it myself. And if I do need that little helping hand, there you go. Somebody's there to help me. And I've had more people asking to help me over the last few weeks, like with different things. Like I'm schlepping a lot of stuff with me in and out of hotels and in and out of houses and stuff like that. Like that, I have to get a handle on. But like sometimes I'll be schlepping stuff and people are like, do you need help? And I'm like, no, I'm good. You know, I'm super hyper independent, and I often don't accept the help. I do when I can, but you know, like if people hold the door open for me and things like that, yes, of course, I'm going to take that help, and I try, but I'm so independent. And I want to know that I'm capable of doing things myself physically and mentally. So there's that. So while I've been moving these last few days, I've had a lot of time to think. And I do that often when I'm doing like manual labor, or I'm cleaning, or I'm washing dishes. I get in that meditative state, and I start mulling things over. And I remember, you know, like, yeah, I don't have a use for him anymore. I have no use for him. And I, you know, accepted the fact that, you know, on some level, I have always known that I have been kind of like using them for different things, using them as a safety net. And this was me using them, but I was trying to, you know, not make it like just blatant using. You know, hey, I'm asking you to inconvenience yourselves to help me, but I'm not going to be a complete jerk about it. I'm going to try and contribute to, you know, to the household. And that's what I was doing. But then the contributions that I was giving were not being appreciated. So things started to get, you know, whatever. So, that's really where it comes down to, is because who wants to accept from themselves that they're using somebody? Because nobody likes to be used. Nobody likes to be used. I know I don't like to be used. And especially, I think most people do not like blatant users, but sometimes the usury is not so blatant. And sometimes, you know, you are making a compromise. You're kind of bartering and thinking, you know, like thinking that what you're offering is enough, but the person's not appreciating it. So whatever. But I had been contributing food, and I was contributing expensive food because I was buying them meat. I was buying ground beef, chicken. I was buying steaks, making, you know, steak and cheese sandwiches for all them. I was doing cooking. I was feeding them. And, you know, I'm spending $50, $60, $70 on food that I can't eat, and you don't appreciate it. Well, okay, clock that. If it wasn't cash in hand, it wasn't good enough. So it switched, the dynamic switched. And that was whatever it was. But I knew at the end of the day, I didn't want to be there anymore. So what am I getting at? I accepted that the only reason why I kept any contact with my brother and my brother's family is because they were always like, if I need them. if something goes down, if I have an injury, if I have this, if I have that, because over the last few years I've had these things, I need a safety net. But what I've learned is that I don't need a safety net because the matrix is my safety net. The matrix always presents the safety net for me. Okay? So I don't need them. I don't need them. And furthermore, I don't need to beg anybody to help me, and I don't need to impose my stuff on anybody else who doesn't want it. So in that moment, in coming to realizing I don't need to impose myself on anybody because I know how much it's going to cost me to stay in a hotel somewhere and all this. I know how to get myself more money. I know how to all this stuff. I am self-reliant. I don't need to do that. And that's when I realized, okay, I don't need to grovel or ask anybody. I don't need to impose that on anybody. I'm free. And in that also, it basically allows me to cut ties there, and if I want to just go on, exist in my life, I can do that, and that's really what it is. I accepted that. That's what it was. I was using them. I'm admitting that to myself, because we think of users as evil people, but it's not about morality, but we've been programmed and conditioned to apply morality to things. That's a bad thing. That's an evil kind of thing to do that, to use somebody. You're looking to disadvantage somebody else for your own gain. And that's really not exactly what I was doing, but it certainly was inconveniencing people. You see what I'm saying? So it wasn't with ill intent, but nevertheless, regardless of the intent, it was still using somebody. It was using somebody because, hey, I can't house myself, or at the particular time, like I'm not financially stable enough. So whatever. So, this is what I'm saying to you is that these aspects of yourself, you're gonna have these times in your game experience where they become apparent to you. And if you are somebody like me, where you kind of examine different things that have gone down and you think about them, whether it's rumination or whatever the case may be, eventually you figure out the puzzle. At least I do. And that's really where I came down to. And it's not a matter of, I'm going to twist this around so that it comes out that I'm the good guy. It's not about that. It's accepting that I was the bad guy. That's clear, okay, for all intents and purposes, I was the bad guy because I was using them in this situation. And who wants to be the bad guy? But I have become comfortable with being the bad guy, so understanding that you are capable of anything that you dislike in somebody else. You're capable of doing something that you may have really not been appreciative of it happening to you. And it's not about being a good person or a bad person. It's about choices. It's literally about choices. Okay? So I hope it resonates. I hope this helps you better examine things that are happening, the choices that you're making, and things about yourself that you're maybe not looking at. And that's really it. So I'm going to cut it off there. And I think I did good in keeping this as short as I could, and getting all the information I wanted out. All right. Thanks. Bye. Have a great one. Bye-bye.